Hi, I'm Naveen Day. This is Forum Daily West. Here are some of the top stories we've been following.
It's budget day in Alberta, with the province planning for a set of scenarios around tariffs. Plus, Ontario voters head to the polls today following a swift campaign. And more details emerge after actor Gene Hackman and his wife are found dead in their New Mexico home.
Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Naveen Day, in for Jeanette. U.S. President Donald Trump says economy-wide tariffs will go ahead next week as planned, including 5% tariffs on all Canadian imports with a lower 10% levy on energy. Trump reaffirmed the tariffs, insisting Canada has not done enough at the border and that illicit drugs are still pouring into the U.S. A team tasked with shoring up Canada's border with the U.S. has joined politicians in Washington to show progress and make a final diplomatic push against import tariffs. Canadian Law Enforcement Public Safety Minister David McGuinty and Canada's fentanyl czar Kevin Brosseau insist they've been meeting standards set by the U.S. for a tighter border. Speaking outside the White House today, McGuinty says the federal government has shown progress and has met standards for the border.
We've had several days of meetings. We're going to continue for the next several days, meeting with different individuals in the American administration, elected officials, senators, congresswomen, congressmen, counterpart organizations like the FBI, the Drug Enforcement Administration, and we're sharing the efforts that have been undertaken by Canada and Canadians to make that strong border stronger. The evidence is irrefutable. The progress is being made. In my view, any test that was put on this country, on Canada, in terms of showing progress and meeting standards for the border, I believe those have been met.
As we care about, as the minister said, ensuring a strong border, continuing that strong border, as well as the safety of our communities.
And today is budget day in the province, and Alberta's Finance Minister Nate Horner has introduced a budget that projects a $5.2 billion deficit this fiscal year on a total spending of $79 billion. That represents an $11 billion swing from the current budget, which is on track to register a surplus close to $6 billion. It's the first deficit under Premier Danielle Smith and the first since the COVID-19 era budget of 2020, and the province expects the deficits will remain through to 2027. Horner says the red ink is driven mainly by oil, tariffs, and a $1 billion tax cut that Smith's government has been promising to bring in for 2 years. We will have more on Alberta's budget and reaction in the coming days. Saskatchewan Premier Scott Moe met with U.S. politicians from the Midwest as the threat of tariffs nears. Moe says 90% of potash used by Midwestern farmers comes from Saskatchewan, and the impact of tariffs will be felt immediately.
We've met with Senator Grassley as well as many other, senators and congressmen from, throughout the Midwest, and the impacts of tariffs on something like potash or oil are going to be pretty immediate. As a Midwestern farmer finds their way to the field to seed, 90% of their potash comes from Saskatchewan. Much of their oil, we export about $15 billion of oil into places like Ohio, Illinois, Louisiana, and Texas, into the refineries there. Gas will go up at the pumps almost immediately. And so American families will pay more with these tariffs. And eventually, I think if they're on for any sustained period of time, all North Americans are going to pay more, and it's going to make for a less competitive North American market, which doesn't benefit us that live here. It benefits other countries in other areas of the world.
Moving over to central Canada now, Ontario voters are heading to the polls for Election Day after a snap winter campaign. Progressive Conservative leader Doug Ford called the $189 million election, saying he needs a new mandate to deal with President Trump. Ford has made the U.S. president's tariff threats and the economy the focal point of his campaign. Liberal leader Bonnie Crombie centered her campaign on a promise to connect every Ontarian to a family doctor, and NDP leader Merritt Stiles spoke a lot about healthcare and affordability. Green Party leader Mike Schreiner made promises on housing, protecting farmland, and improving affordability. In international news, talks to end Russia's invasion of Ukraine are, quote, very well advanced. That's according to U.S. President Donald Trump, and he's confident Russian leader Vladimir Putin won't press to restart the war if a truce can be reached. Trump made the comments during a White House meeting with British Prime Minister Keir Starmer. Starmer was expected to make his case to the president that American leadership would be critical to maintain the peace in Ukraine should the three-year war end. When we return, we will have more of the top stories from the West with Forum Daily West. And speaking of Ontario, the province has reported 84 new measles cases over the last 2 weeks. That nearly doubles the province's total count since an outbreak started in the fall. Health officials say almost all of the new cases are connected to an interprovincial outbreak that began in October, which sickened 177 people in Ontario and also saw the virus spread in New Brunswick and Manitoba. 18 kids have been hospitalized as a result of the outbreak of the highly contagious airborne disease. One child has died in the United States. It's the first reported measles death there in a decade.
Measles virus is an RNA virus. That just means its genetic material is RNA. It's a respiratory virus. It infects our upper and lower respiratory tract. It can infect our lungs and cause pneumonia. It's very dangerous for several reasons. One, because it can produce very severe disease like pneumonia that can be fatal, especially in young children. Can also, in a very small proportion of cases, cause encephalitis or swelling of the brain. It's also so transmissible that it can spread and cause a big outbreak very quickly and explosively unless people are vaccinated to protect them from infection and becoming a spreader of the virus.
In other news, potential human remains were discovered at a landfill north of Winnipeg, where search teams have been working to find 2 slain First Nations women. A search of the Prairie Green landfill, spearheaded by the provincial government for the remains of Morgan Harris and Mercedes Mirren, began in December after Winnipeg police refused to search the area over safety concerns. Manitoba Premier Wab Kinew spoke with reporters in Winnipeg Wednesday.
I think we've always understood that searching the landfill was the right thing to do, but with the disclosure of potential human remains being found today, I think we can also say it was a realistic and a reasonable thing for us to do. While the experts say that these are partial human remains, we also need to bear in mind we don't know which of these 2 families are potentially going to receive the news, or potentially another family that is not even perhaps part of the conversation right now. So with so many unknowns right at this point, we do need to keep that respect for this identification process, which is going to take probably up to a couple weeks to play out. So an important day for Manitobans, an important day for 2 families, and an important day also, I would say, for the country.
Law enforcement officials say they are preparing to protect more than 3,400 people during this year's G7 summit west of Calgary. The summit is taking place from June 15th to 17th in Kananaskis, Alberta. A report to the Calgary Police Commission says police are expecting about 70 official guests, 2,000 delegates, and 1,400 journalists. The summit will bring together leaders from Canada, the United States, France, Germany, Japan, the United Kingdom, and Italy, along with the European Union. And in local news, Lethbridge Police Services says the city in 2024 has seen a 16% decrease in crime since 2023 and an 18% decrease in crime severity. Crime rates in Lethbridge peaked in 2019 but have seen a steady decrease year over year. 2024 saw a 24% drop since 2019 by over 4,000 incidents. There were significant reductions in opportunistic crimes in 2024 compared to 2023. Break-and-enter crimes were down by 35%, mischief by 24%, theft from motor vehicles by 35%, and theft of motor vehicles decreased by 25%. In persons crimes, there was a large drop in sexual assault cases by 38%, general assault by 12%, and robbery was down by 15% compared to 2023 rates. Property crime, once one of the highest rates in Canada in 2019, dropped a further 24% from last year. Lethbridge, for the past few days, has been hosting the U Sports and CCAA Curling Championships. The top post-secondary teams across the country, including men and women teams from the University of Lethbridge, have gathered at the Lethbridge Curling Club to compete in the national finals. Organizers of the tournament say the event gives the game more exposure in the city, featuring high-level athletes.
It kind of gets left to the wayside most of the time. People look at the big events like the Briers and the Scotties. So this event is a really nice showing for these athletes. And some of these athletes, this will be their premier event that they go to in their curling career. So for us, it's having a good crowd out here. You know, people from Lethbridge like to support these things. And they've shown it already.
Although February is almost over and with it Black History Month, it's good to continue to remember throughout the year the achievements and events that marked the history of Black people with cultural food and fashion, students and employees of Lethbridge Polytechnic, which participated in the closing ceremony today. Ugana Lisa, a student at Lethbridge Polytechnic, explains their culture.
When people get to know how we dress, how colorful we look, I used to tell people that it kicks off a conversation. Like when they see your purse, see your embroidery, they want to find out, well, how is it made? Where is it from? It's actually a point to start off a conversation, and then people get to know you beyond your color or your accent. Black people have excelled in many aspects of life. So it's beyond the stories that are told over and over by some narrative. Black people are excelling in science, in technology, in city, everywhere, and there is need to celebrate where we are coming from and where we have gotten to and where we are going to.
It's important for us to express our culture as Black people because we're from many different nations, and one thing I can say is Black people love to celebrate. And so as we've seen today, African dress, there's also some Jamaicans here. I'm wearing my stuff too, so it's important to us to celebrate and dress up and party and have food. Black History Month is important to not just Black people but to everyone because it's a part of our history. And I'll encourage every person to just dig in, do some research, find out who we are, because there's so many different countries and cultures. And it will be nice to, meet other people who can tell me about Jamaica, as opposed to me saying I'm from Jamaica, this is what Jamaica is. So it is important for us to continue to do that as one people.
Notable Black figures in Canada include Dr. Dominique Gaspard, who during the First World War suspended his studies to enlist in the Canadian Expeditionary Force, which was part of the Canadian Army Medical Corps. Gaspard graduated in 1918 and was one of the first generation of doctors of African descent. The 2025 edition of Southern Alberta Home, Garden and Leisure is ready to kick off and offer new things. The show will be held March 13th to 15th at the Agri-Food Hub to ensure an enhanced and engaging experience for both exhibitors and attendees. The executive officer with Build Lethbridge Region, Bridget Mearns, explains what's new at this show this year.
It's a sold-out show this year, so we have the space. It's in one place. In the past, the facility was, well, as you probably know, was kind of blocked up in different sections. This, you have the whole show in front of you. We are offering is a net zero wall guides training to all of the vendors that are in the show this year. So we're also offering them a free education component. And also to do that, to network, but also offer some educational components. And I have to admit, the helicopter is pretty cool. I've seen this show evolve over tens of years, and I've seen how important it is to our community businesses, and it's a favorite in our community. And one of my favorite things is watching how people come together at the Home and Garden Show. There are people who haven't seen each other, it's been a long winter, they open the doors, the sun is shining, and they see their neighbors or people they haven't seen for a while. So it's a place where Southern Alberta gathers.
That every time we do a show, we open up the submissions, right, to our exhibitors and our attendees, and we're just like, because you're never going to get it right. You know, that's one of the things that our companies learned about large-scale events. You're going to get close, but there's going to be stuff you're going to miss. So we listen to the community, we listen to our exhibitors, we listen to our sponsors, and they're like, what can we add to the show that's going to make it better?
Mearns says a portion of the show's proceeds will be donated to a local Southern Alberta Emergency Medical Services charity. Some sad news now. Hollywood legend, two-time Oscar-winning actor Gene Hackman has died at the age of 95. The Associated Press has this report.
Oscar-winning actor Gene Hackman and his wife were found dead in their New Mexico home on Wednesday. Foul play is not suspected. However, authorities did not release any details of the circumstances of their deaths and said an investigation is ongoing. A spokesperson for the Santa Fe County Sheriff's Office said deputies responded to a requested ill welfare check at the home on Wednesday around 1:45 local time and found Hackman, his wife Betsy Arakawa, and a dog dead. Hackman, who was 95, was one of the industry's most respected and honoured performers.
Gene Hackman receives his Oscar from Liza Minnelli.
Get off the bar and get on the wall!
His dozens of films included Oscar-winning roles in The French Connection and Unforgiven, and he had a breakout performance in Bonnie and Clyde.
It's a make-believe world, and as I say, it's what I wanted to do as a child, and I fulfilled a lot of my dreams.
Investigators have disclosed new details that Hackman was found dead in a mudroom of his New Mexico home, and his wife Betsy Arakawa was found dead in a bathroom next to a space heater.